Cade Mila Falcha. Welcome to part 3 of Nostradamus by Dolores Cannon, volume 1, part 3 video. If by some great misfortune this abruptly shuts itself off, be patient. I will upload everything and erase it all and continue with the 4th video to finish everything. I'll be back, I promise. Okay, part 3. Chapter 16, the ravage of the church. The Antichrist would destroy the cultural heritage and the religion of Europe. It would undermine the morale of the entire Western world. It would separate So there'll be, how do I put this? My shorthand is illegible. There'll be different events, separate events in the Middle East and Rome. The Vatican will sink into the sea. So what he's predicting is this person will attack from south, the Mediterranean, from the northeast Mediterranean up to the southern countries of Europe, and Italy and France will be the hardest hit, and he will demolish Rome by creating flooding that will destroy it. It'll make the church crumble, and it'll be a combination of natural accidents and man-made energy force from the sky. So there's some new kind of weapon going to be involved. And he calls them the Arabs. Will use this to their advantage. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm on some sort of anti-Middle Eastern thing. I'm just repeating what's been said hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And that's all. He said to keep your eye on Turkey, that the leader there will be a very dangerous man. The Antichrist will take power in the Middle East, then the Mediterranean, and approach Europe from the south. It'll already have consolidated North Africa, Asia, the Middle East into a conglomerate. It threatens cultural destruction. That's his goal, is cultural destruction. And starts by destroying Rome and will level intentionally the 7 hills of Rome with bombs. Now, Rome will go underwater, but that'll be more because of other damage elsewhere. But he will intentionally level the 7 hills of Rome, and the sea will encroach and destroy the rest. He will go after Greek cultural centers in Athens, etc. He will shock the world into a paralysis before they know how to react, because they can't imagine somebody would do this. The Antichrist will use this tactic, doing such terrible things that people simply cannot believe it. His goal, starting with Italy and Greece, is to destroy culture and replace it the way the Moors did in Spain. They will make progress because the union of the USA and the United Kingdom forces won't have a clear leader, and they'll be at each other's throats. Nostradamus says the great city, not New York City, for him is usually Rome. The Antichrist will ransack the Vatican, destroy the Vatican Library, weaken the church by revealing secrets from the library that he finds there that have been hidden from the public. This will cause dissension in the church and confusion, and then the church won't be an obstacle to his progress. He'll use submarines to steal Vatican documents to get them past the Italian Navy. During the time of troubles, fundamentalist sects of all religions, he doesn't paint any one religion, all religions will be powerful, because religious institutions, according to Nostradamus, always suppress learning and education. And there will be censorship of books. It's ironic, by revealing the secret knowledge hidden in the Vatican Library, the Antichrist will help himself by releasing knowledge to the world and start the beginning of a cycle of working off his own personal karma. In other words, no matter what happens to everybody else, his doing this is actually going to help him personally, karmically, in the long run. A little bit of irony there. The church will become superfluous as the pendulum swings. Chapter 17, the monster appears. The Antichrist will start a civil war in Iran, and then he'll put forward a leader. A supporter of the Ayatollah will hate the leader and kill him, and this will position the Antichrist into power. He will unite the currencies of the world to make one political entity, one political money. A popular leader from Egypt will resist him. He's going to put the Nazis back in power in Germany and break the neutrality of Switzerland. Some will recognize his dark power, but will take too long to react to it because they'll be stunned. He will already be broadening his support right now. Then Nostradamus talks about a 1997 time frame of a Mars-Sun comet confluence. The Antichrist will be in power in some portion of the world at this time. He says your wildest imaginings will not be too out of place. It's important to get the bulk of knowledge together and spread it before suppression has a chance to take place. The Antichrist will move up Italy into France, and he will do it by plane. He will set up regional outposts, headquarters in Italy and Turkey. He'll have different areas, and he'll do a lot of his war through the air, not on the ground. Nostradamus says there's a ray of hope to alter all of this, no matter what will be, though. Great spiritual rebirth will come to the world after. Individuals will have a chance to use the time of trouble to get in touch with themselves and realize the materialistic values that we have had are false. There's a purpose to this. We volunteered to be here for this, if we are still as old folks. He said it will lead to a great rebirth of philosophy, a blend of Eastern and Western philosophical thought, and the age of Aquarius. The knowledge of this ray of hope can alleviate some of the worst aspects of the time of trouble, but it'll be tough due to the huge amount of materialism that we have right now. The United States will try to be neutral. It'll provide unmarked air support so that it doesn't get identified. The Antichrist will take over Monaco, a strategic place, and will imprison the prince. The U.S. star of power is waning at her sunset. The nation is uncertain about involvement. The Antichrist subs will threaten sea shipping. It has been revealed that the USSR did provide Iran with subs to control the Persian Gulf after this was written down. After the book was written. Chapter 18, Europe, the eternal battlefield. Weather changes will lead to drought, lead to famine, lead to refugees, and the Antichrist will destroy Italy and Greece and will destroy the wine industry. This is the worst news we've had all day, frankly. Some of this is repetitious because some of the quatrains repeat. When the Antichrist turns to the conquest of Europe, the leader of England will rush in, but will have to retreat in disgrace. There will be some in Europe that are secretly working with the Antichrist, and education will end as the war rages. The leader of Gibraltar will save the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. And then the naval officer responsible for doing it will die in a car crash. The Antichrist wants to take the United Kingdom. The U.S. will support the United Kingdom, but he will eventually take part of it. But he will not take Ireland, and he will not take Scotland or Northern England. Ireland will reunite because England won't be able to interfere. They tried it before during the war, World War I. That's when they had their rebellion, and then in 1918, and then shortly after that, the Easter Uprising. It was because England was too preoccupied. Anyway, because England won't be able to interfere, Ireland can apply its own remedies to its situation and be united finally. And then with the Scots, they will be strong and will be a big help to the underground against the Antichrist, and they will conquer him. Woohoo! Ireland and Scotland will be pivotal and proud of the role that they play in his defeat. Spain is important in the underground to Central Europe. Through the Pyrenees, people will escape there. Major trade centers of Europe will be brought to ruin. No Europe Northern Europe will suffer confusion. The Antichrist will foment rebellion within countries like Hitler did. Chapter 19, Experimentation. Scientists are desperate for new weapons against the Antichrist when all this happens, and there'll be a quake caused by the action of a new weapon. We know that now. It will be an airborne device linked to an underground laboratory which can trigger a quake as a weapon. Whichever country develops this will have the power over everybody, and because of it, the UN will be dissolved. The owner country of the weapon will not want to share it, and this will dissolve the UN. It'll be a country capable of secret military research in a big way. It's a paranoid nation. Its attitude is it's mine, and we're keeping it for ourselves. It's already being developed in the 1980s. He said, when the sun is in 20 degrees of Taurus, it will be known. I don't quite know what that means. Let's see here. There'll be an earthquake associated with it, and people will come to realize that something fishy is going on. Then there'll start being a lot of earthquakes without the previous buildup of pressure associated with them. One of the side effects of this weapon, it will create sufficient instability to set off other earthquakes that are apt to go at any time. He's picturing the two major fault systems in the United States. One is particularly unstable. The other one is stable, but then it becomes explosive. So we're talking San Andreas and the New Madrid. He says the earthquakes triggered by this weapon will cause the San Andreas fault to rumble all the time. The New Madrid fault has always been bad to build up pressure and then explosively quake. So with the San Andreas fault continually rumbling and vibrating, it'll set off the New Madrid fault in a major earthquake. When these earthquakes initially start happening, the geologists will think it's by natural causes, but then some of the information will not point to natural causes, and they'll begin to suspect something. As more earthquakes happen, through the science, they gather more information, confront the scientific world with the evidence that they have that these are not naturally occurring quakes. This will be during the time of danger before the Antichrist and will lead to a dissolving of the UN, which will make it easier for the Antichrist, who will eventually take it, the weapon, and use it to his own ends, and he'll get it through guile and trickery, spies, and bribery. There's a new type of radar that will weaken the structure of enemy planes, dissolve their molecular bonds, and cause diplomatic breakdowns and threats of war. At the same time as the Antichrist, but before his full power will happen in Europe, he will be gaining power in the Middle East. Tesla claimed to have invented a weapon like this. The Russians developed a gyrotron to sweep the sky of warplanes and increase energy with microwaves, and they could wipe out electrical circuits. So there's all sorts of stuff that's been going on. Nostradamus described secret weapon research, energy fields to guard the skies over Russia that we didn't know about. Nostradamus predicts a weapon so terrible he refused to describe it. It'll be an ultimate monstrosity, a totally different type of atomic weapon, not our familiar bomb. It causes the upset in the ecology, plagues, and weird creatures. Margaret Atwood, always right. All sides will have horrible weapons. An organism will be intentionally put into the atmosphere. It will be released over New York and London. It will mutate differently in those two different places, and it'll look like two separate diseases, but it has the same cause. The cities will be quarantined, services will break down, there'll be no food for fear of delivering food will make other people sick, bodies will stack up, soldiers will be stabbing people to keep them away from the food stores to be able to deliver them. They'll be panicking and rioting. So these are runaway viruses from a bacteriological warfare lab. Scientists experimenting with Earth's energy fields will accidentally rupture one, sending a beam into space that draws meteorites here on the beam into the North Sea. It'll continue to come until the scientists figure out how to repair the damage. This throws everything out of balance, and then there are more earthquakes. So this is a secret government project, and it has code names, and it'll keep the reason for the meteorites a secret because people will believe it's a natural phenomenon and won't blame the government. And it won't necessarily be an English-speaking government. It will be kept secret, but it will be revealed. No, it will not be revealed in the history books. In 1999 and 7 months will come the great king of terror. I don't know who this is. Many experiments in eugenics are going on, experiments to regenerate earlier, less civilized humans to use as soldiers. It's a joint effort of several countries with a ton of money. And he said the 20th century, and there's rumor of super soldiers. The 20th century will be the most war-torn. America, Russia, Japan, and some European countries are designing these soldiers. The king of terror is the person in charge of the project, so powerful that he can dictate policy in various different countries. He's the power behind the throne, very secretive. No one is aware of his power. Brenda said that she could tell that Nostradamus meant selective breeding and not cloning, but more like the Nazis did. They use short generations, teen parents, and it's been going on for over 70 years. During the end of the time of troubles, a panel of very smart scientists will develop super weapons like the Manhattan Project. They're isolated in this work, and while they're working on it, they don't know it, their side loses, and they will die horribly for their part in the project. This project began in 1930. There are 9 main scientists. Part of it is the eugenics they were talking about, and it may be a continuation of Hitler's breeding programs. Okay. Yeah, well, I didn't mark it. So, chapter 20, the time of troubles. Many quatrains dealt with wars. Many wars followed patterns, and this chapter is those that are more specific. During the Antichrist time, there will be fighting because there will be no fighting because he's got so much control. Remember, military control. This won't last because people always want freedom. They'll fight against him. There'll be much death. It'll be very traumatic. Diplomatic ties will have changed, but still the United States and France will be close allies. A bomb will be sent to New York City, and the U.S. will be so busy focusing on it, but France will step up, and while the U.S. is distracted trying to prevent the bomb, they will retaliate on behalf of the United States and in an immediate response. This one big bomb will be exploded before it reaches New York, but it will kill many people in the plains around it who are trying to stop it. Other bombs will hit New York City. The waters of the oceans will heat up, and they'll start soon, he said, and fish will begin to die. Europe will bear the brunt of the fighting. The new secret weapons brought out are horrifying. There'll be nukes in the Middle East. They'll scatter various navies. The water in the area will become a muddy red color that looks like blood in the prophecies, but it's not blood. It's just dirt in the mud. Nostradamus sees a pattern. The United States, when it has a Republican president, that guy causes depression, and the United States, when it has a Democratic president, that guy chooses war. The U.S. will get involved in this to stimulate the economy. That's what always happens. Rivers will change course. Water systems and boundaries will all be messed up, and they'll have to do an entire remapping. There'll be a vast migration across Europe fleeing the military aggression. There'll be a rain of milk, which is radiation rain, and these new weapons are the worst combination of nuclear and laser weapons. Some laser weaponry gives the appearance of white rain when it's used. History moves in a spiral. The Antichrist moves to invasion and destruction like Hitler did. It's a similar astrological situation. The Antichrist will figure out why Hitler failed, and he'll learn from Hitler's mistakes, and he'll have access to books that are not in the public view right now. He will learn from the secret Nazi documents, and these weapons that they make will cause terrible birth defects. But our solution to all of this will be learned from the animal kingdom. Nostradamus gave astrological times for the radiation and the birth defects and the ecological disasters. The time period they're thinking of is 97 to 2001. But, do we know if anything like that happened? And not to the extreme. Nostradamus says that we are missing ancient texts that would set things clear for us. That there was another planet that was destroyed, and that is the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. And there will be an enforced famine because wheat won't be shipped. It'll be too expensive and too difficult due to the wars. Major climate changes will happen, especially after the use of these weapons. So global famine, global cannibalism, and she mentions later when she goes back and looks, there was a big drought in Africa in 92. Well, these terrible events must be lived through if we are to attain the ultimate goal that we will be working towards. This is not something that we can dodge. We have to go through the pain to get to where we need to be. He says these events must be lived through, or if we are to attain the ultimate we'll be working toward. If we survive these bad events, then afterwards we will truly be a pacifist people, a peaceful people. And our philosophy will have changed sufficiently so this part of our path will be different and will go along a holistic path rather than a technological path. He says these quatrains are supposed to be disturbing. I've pointed out the very worst that can happen so we can avoid as many as possible. He says, look at your death count from World War II and tell me man is not capable of anything. He's complaining about the short-sightedness of people, and he says the main reason he wants this communication is to avoid the worst of what he has seen. Some of the so-called worst-case scenarios could very easily take place, but with great determination and resolve, they could be altered for the better. Unfortunately, at this time, the worst thing that he has seen would be the easiest events to happen, and he knows he must try his best to lessen the destruction. So he's showing a picture of the karmic wheel in large sections and how astrology affects it. Many souls did volunteer, such as your older and more advanced spirits who are needed here to help everybody pull through. There are some younger spirits who feel adventurous. However, there are spirits who are here not necessarily because they wanted to come in their hearts, but because they knew they had to, or it would be the end of the line for them as far as spiritual development goes. It's going to be that tough. So they're not fully volunteers, just enforced volunteers because they know they had no other choice. He says some of them are unhappy, some of them manage to make the best of it, and some don't. It's their choice to make. During the Troubles, there'll be a visit from the Watchers, which are like the others. It will be spotted by scientists and called a UFO. We will have great social unrest and panic because of it, and internal dissension caused by fundamentalists because it shakes their worldview, their belief system. Planetary influences are trying to bring about spiritual love for us. That's what that's all about. They're also trying to increase our spiritual growth, the others and the Watchers being the same thing. They want us to join their community, and we're not ready. Chapter 21, the Cabal. He said the moon is about psychic things. Political figures on the stage are being moved by puppet masters behind the scenes in a single global organization working for its own ends. What have we been saying? Dark money. They disguise themselves as minor advisors, undersecretaries. They look like good citizens, but they report to each other for their own ends, and they're not loyal to any government. They're firm grip, they're in control, they've been in control for generations. A family we will talk about someday here soon. They trace the family history of banking and money powers, and it may not be who you think of. The Cabal is a network of global power, and the Antichrist turns the tables on them and wrests their power from them. Iran-Contra, that was money, not from the government, but given by this organization behind the scenes. They've never been able to find the trace of sources or where it went. The government didn't do it. The Antichrist's cabinet will be tied to these families, and they will be puppets. The basic colonial barons associated with the European world empires are who we're talking about. They started fortunes with the raw materials from the third world that they stole, and they are interrelated. you know who I'm thinking of. They manipulate the economy to cause unemployment rates to rise or fall at their whim. They manipulate the economy to cause inflation to rise and fall at their whim. He says every time you go to the store and have to pay a higher price for a loaf of bread, it's because of them. So they have already affected your life. Put away your black mourning clothes. Extreme weather will happen during this war with the Antichrist. The cabal of leaders, these financiers behind the scenes, will be discovered by him and they will be destroyed. It's short-sighted of him because they've been responsible for wars, and without the wars, his support is going to be gone. It kind of upsets the apple cart. When they're gone, agitation for war is gone, and a natural inclination for world peace will assert itself and do away with the Antichrist. Chapter 22, the turning the tide. In a strategic battle, the main commander of the Antichrist will make a strategic error and be captured or killed, and will misuse technology, and this will be a downfall. US, Canada, Russia, and Northern Europe will unite against him. He's not been able to keep all of Russia under his control, and part of it will break free and join the others. This union strikes fear in the heart of the Antichrist. It's the turning point. Many victories, he gets complacent, he starts losing small battles, he uses germ warfare, there'll be famine, there'll be disease. France is allied with the good side, but weak. It's an ally in spirit and heart, but because of its location, it's really diminished. Final struggle will be in the area between Europe and Asia. He says when there's a great tyrant, there's always a great hero because of the cosmic balance. And this hero will probably come from the underground movement and will, he calls him Ogmios, who is a Celtic Hercules. He's the god of eloquence. And he's maybe from somewhere around Central Europe like Istanbul. He will be of the people, a practical person, an old soul with priorities in the right place. He'll pave the way for the great genius to come after the Antichrist. His job is to bring down the Antichrist, but not to lead the world himself. And then there are cards here for that. He will lead, his organization will lead to future governments after the Antichrist. He's a man of great stature, like bearing. His resources will be small part because he's part of the underground. Religion is distorted at this time because of fundamentalism. All religions, Christian, Islamic, Buddhist, everything. And this will be the major trouble of this time. The Antichrist will take over Europe and want to rule the world with his own dynasty. He knows powerfully placed family can have major effects on the flow of history. He loves to manipulate power, and he wants to do it over a span of time longer than his own life through a family line, but he will fail. He'll be overthrown by Ogmios, and then the great genius will come to balance the forces and heal the earth. He says the Antichrist will wear a blue turban. The Antichrist will be in power just short of 30 years. The time of troubles is probably going to be between 2030s and 2040s, more or less. Chapter 23, the aftermath of the Third War. Deterioration of politics inside the U.S. will happen before and during the Antichrist. After the war, the U.S. will reawaken to the concepts embodied by the Statue of Liberty. Concepts of rights will come alive again. Things will be better than before. A new president will be elected who wants peace because the people are tired of war. The strength of the American Union will wane. Some astrological discussions go on here to determine the time frame. But he says that UFOs are going to form underwater bases and will move them onto shore. They will have an influence on us. People will fear them as enemies. Some are good and some are not. Chapter 24, the great genius. A man will follow Ogmios, who will be the world's greatest genius ever, a gentle, good, and helpful person. He comes to help mankind We're not talking Jesus here. He comes to help mankind. He's self-contained, self-supporting space stations that he's going to make. Space colonies that look like small moons will relieve poverty and overcrowding. It's attractive to scientists, attractive to politicians, very successful plan. He invents, it's not Elon Musk, he invents organic computers and transplants some of his genius to serve mankind after he dies. It duplicates his knowledge, and it uses bacteria to do it. After this man, we're at a nexus of timelines, and it will affect any direction that we go. Prominent light, he is a prominent light in the landscape of time. So Cannon tested Nostradamus through Brenda to make sure that she was talking to the same person she was through Elena. The genius will redo our understanding of the universe, and therefore philosophy. We'll return to old works with a new eye. We'll redefine our understanding of old religions in a better way. We'll replace old, narrow ways of looking at things, and sweeping change will happen in our religions and philosophy. What first will be thought to be a scientific discovery will prove to be more metaphysical and will make clear the connection between physics and metaphysics with religion to help explain. This is what Anzar told Dr. Bruce Solheim. The genius will discover the basic structure of the universe and the nature of God. Nostradamus confirmed that what he said through Elena about more ancient writings to be found and not wanting to do a map to prevent treasure hunting, so she realized this was the same person. Okay, the new philosophy will be engendered by discoveries of the genius, and it will develop our mental powers, our unity of mind, body, and soul. People will be able to manipulate basic forces of the universe. People will understand, and it will be effective. The genius will discover great things for humankind. 500 years later, there will be new great discoveries. The genius will come in the mid-21st century, after all the time of trouble, in the time of our grandchildren, according to this. Chapter 25, the far future. So this will all breathe life back into the dead, and people will live a very long time. It'll feel like the rebirth of science and philosophy. Everything will be changed and upside down, and it will change all religious beliefs. There will be a secret naval base under the U.S. continental shelf. We'll discover a new force like electricity or magnetism that's always been here. People will look inward to explain things from Eastern religions, and as a result, they'll learn how to do telepathy and that kind of thing. Atlantis did exist. It used stone the same way we use metal. It could make stone malleable and then reharden it. It worked with forces that could be conducted through the stone. It was a civilization based on a totally different concept of the world than our understanding. When archaeologists find it, they won't understand what they found. They've already found parts of it all over the world. It was worldwide, and remains will be found everywhere. A little already has been found, and no one's put two and two together yet. Major Atlantean city is on the U.S. Eastern continental shelf, and there's one in the Sea of Japan. There's one under the ice of Antarctica, and there's evidence in Central and South America and other places. Some evidence has been found. Megaliths with mathematical precision, like the ones in England, are part of it. When we discover more, it will revise our view of prehistory. Some of it was on continental shelf and swallowed by the sea as the coasts changed. But these places were not the center. Lots of other places existed, and they all communicated with one another. It was a large global civilization. Mankind became very advanced. It did not rely on technology. It used psi phenomena, it used the mind. But there was an event, either caused by ETs or natural event, cluster of asteroids maybe, and some of them hit us and messed up the climate and destroyed the cities, and civilization was lost, we were driven to start again from the very beginning. And it caused bodies of water that are round, and you can still see where these asteroids hit, the Sea of Japan, the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico. And it did not happen because of their misuse of power. That's a fallacy. Nostradamus feels that they may have become so advanced they were a threat to somebody else not of this world, and it was a belligerent act on the part of another civilization off planet. He says if he had made his quatrains simple, they would have been destroyed, so he couldn't make them simple. Humans will start to develop spiritually. We have the knowledge, and we need now, but we don't realize that we have it. We will travel in space with PSI, not with technology, psi. The Earth will continue to face cycles of far in the future of drought and famine, and people will have to melt polar water for polar ice for water, and there'll be terrible rains and floods, and then back to droughts. And he says these are natural cycles. We make them better or worse, but they are natural cycles. Man will tip the balance with technology, but the cycles will continue. There will be droughts, famines, plagues, movements of people, dissension, conflict, rain, flood, peace, and on, and it starts again. The entire age of the world can be divided into 7 portions, and the first 6 are over. The number 7 that we're in right now has to do with man and his doings, and at the end of the 7th age, it'll be the end of man. Earth will go on for a few more ages, but man will have served his purpose and accomplished what he needs here on Earth. This is a school, and we will all have finished what we can, and we will be elsewhere. We're not going to go away forever. We'll be elsewhere as something else. The wheel of karma will send man to other places, just not to Earth. By then, civilization will have risen and fallen and risen and fallen and been rebuilt and fallen again several times. Some traditions may be passed down in perverted times. For example, our Olympic Games come every 4 years. They're based on ancient games from the past where there was slaughter. Then they became the gladiatorial games where there was slaughter. Another example, as just another example of the cycle of time. The games were started as athletic events originally, then they became violent, then they became athletic, then they became violent again, and that's what we can look for. Souls will transfer off the planet. And long after the Earth is gone, the sun will die. And none of this is worth getting upset about. It's just the natural cycle of things. Chapter 26, the end and the beginning. Sometimes Nostradamus stopped the sessions to help Brenda with her health. He felt the project was urgent, but she was worn out. He picked Dolores Cannon because he was able to connect with her because of her hypnosis work. He says he had contacted people in the future on other planets also. He had contacted the others. He made predictions for them. He made it clear that this particular stuff with Dolores Cannon is his only contact on the Earth. And any who claim that he contacted them are delusional or religious fanatics. There's no such thing as enough proof for a true skeptic. The right people will read these and will help to lead for good decisions and favorable outcomes. Cannon said that this is her most incredible case she's ever worked on. She expects that it will be called a hoax when she publishes it. Somehow, Nostradamus realized his works were indecipherable to the future. He decided to find a contact to help explain and clarify. Cannon was situated perfectly through her hypnotic sessions with Elena, and then who had been Dionysus with Nostradamus in the past. And between the period of July 1986 and February 1987, they translated and corrected 300 quatrains. And that's the end of Volume 1. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. please let me know. I have ordered volume 2 and 3 just for my own edification. If you would like me to do those, I will. And tomorrow we'll look at the tarot cards that Nostradamus laid out. How about that? I think that's fascinating. Thank you for watching. Have a very nice Saturday, and Slán go fóill and sláinte.